Excuse me. Is it cool if I get a picture of you? Okay, thank you. All right, so I made it to the park and they've changed a lot. I used to come here a lot years ago because I lived very close to here. But from what I remember, part of it is a paved path that goes kind of alongside a major river here. And then part of it goes off into the woods. So we'll get a nice mix of both, hopefully. But yeah, it's a pretty cloudy day. I don't think it's gonna rain today, hopefully. Mainly because I'm not super sure about the Canon A1 and how it would do, but I did buy a rain cover, so at least I'll be prepared if it does rain. But yeah, let's go on the walk. All right, so right by the parking lot at the very entrance of the park, there's this bike rack with a bunch of bicycles that you can rent. And I figured, why not take the first picture of the day here? I think it's pretty good for the first picture of the day. I do feel like I should have maybe pulled back a little bit and maybe gotten that second bike over instead of cutting it off. But I do like the backdrop with the trees off in the distance. Then I started on the actual trail. So like I mentioned before, this park has a mix of paved trail and then a wooded trail. So the very beginning, I noticed these trees with these like cool vines climbing and like wrapping around the trees. So I took a quick picture. I'm kind of annoyed at myself here because I could have taken a better picture, but I got a little bit nervous because there was someone walking right next to me. So I took it very quickly and I definitely did not compose this the best that I could have. You know, it's okay. So a little further ahead, you start to make out the river over on the right-hand side. And eventually I passed this woman with her 2 dogs. And I tried to turn around real quick to get a picture of her because this sort of beginning stretch of the trail is very cool. These trees are really, really tall. But I realized I had not advanced my film. So I pressed down on the shutter and nothing happened. So that was super frustrating, something that I need to work on. But anyway, a little bit further ahead, I saw a squirrel just like jumping around in the grass. So I tried to get a little bit closer and I got this picture. You can see at the front right, the squirrel is about to jump up on the tree. So I'm really happy that I got it, I think, in focus. I like the image. I like that the sun is coming, you know, from in front of me, and so it's casting these shadows like down the center of the image that are like almost illuminating the squirrel. I do wish that the trees weren't so dark, and I don't know if that's my exposure settings or also just me needing to tweak it a little bit in the edit, but overall I do like this one. All right, so then eventually we come down to this section where you can walk down a little bit closer to the river. So some of these cutouts are a little bit sketchy, but this one I felt was okay. So I just made my way down here and I got a couple of pictures here actually. I think if I had gone maybe a little bit wider, I would like this picture a bit more. I love walking near rivers and being around rivers, and like the sound of running water is so soothing. So having this as a picture kind of gives that feeling as well, of like calm, water breaking against these rocks, the sun glistening as well and like lighting up some of these where you can tell. So I like this picture, but I do wish I had maybe gone a little bit wider. Immediately after that, I noticed this moss growing on the rocks on the other side, and I took a picture of it, and I really like this one. There's a twig that just happened to be kind of coming out diagonally from the bottom right and going towards that glistening spot on the top left. The moss itself was like super overgrown and green, and I like the glow that the sun is like creating around everything. Not too much further ahead, there was another little path leading down to the river. So I walked down, not as far down to the river, but just by these trees, and I tried to frame the bridge in between the trees. I think this came out pretty cool. I did crop a tiny bit off the top because the sky, I think maybe I overexposed a bit. It was pretty cloudy, so it just looks really white. Still really happy with this one. Then I actually got closer to the bridge, so you can see I'm about to walk under it. And you can see someone down there at the very end of the path. I wanted to get a picture of her, but I felt like she was too far away and I couldn't frame it the way I wanted. So right at the center of the bridge, I took this picture. And I really like this one. Maybe kind of a cheesy bridge picture perhaps, but I like the symmetry, the shapes, and like, of course, the leading lines. From what I remember, in the summertime, you get a lot of people like kayaking and tubing down this river. So that would have been really cool to get someone at that point. So I made it across the bridge and there's this little kind of like beach area, you could say. Made my way down and onto these like rocks and I got this picture. I like the way this came out actually. I like the bridge in the background and then the blue tone of the water and how it turns into this more golden brown as you get to the rocky, like beachy area. And then you also get a little bit of the ripples of the water on the rocks, you know, extending out from the bottom left corner towards the center of the image. So I think this one is pretty nice. Here I'm making my way back up from that area. You can tell a little bit more how steep it was. And more than steep, it was also just kind of unstable with all these rocks and roots and stuff. A little bit further down the trail, there was another section where you could come down to the river. And I came down and I took this picture. I wanted to capture the fishermen that were off in the distance, but they were way too far away for my 50mm. The water is completely still, so you can see everything reflected in it. I think, of course, it would have been much more interesting if that fisherman was more clear in the picture, but I still actually do really like this one for some reason. The wooded trail is a lot closer to the river, but there's also a steeper drop between the trail and the river. And so I tried to get closer to capture some wildlife. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff in front of me, but I did get this picture. I really like this one a lot, actually. I think, of course, it would have been so much better with a little bit less stuff in the foreground. I think the twigs and branches and leaves and everything still give it like a nice vibe, but it does feel a little bit too cluttered. Even so, I still do really love this. I think the colors of the river, again, it's just, the river looks so beautiful. Eventually, I reached a part of the trail where you could actually go down to the river. It wasn't quite as steep of a drop. It was a nice, easy path, actually. So I just walked right down and I actually ended up staying in this spot for a decent amount of time, just kind of relaxing and taking it all in. I did decide to walk a little closer to the bridge and take this picture. There's something very cool to me about trees like this that are not just, you know, perfectly vertical. And this one has such crazy twisty branches. It's just like leaning over into the river and it almost kind of creates a frame around the bridge. I don't know if it's the best composition, but I do like how it turned out. So then I turned around and went back to this section I had just passed by. There's a tree that's just sort of fallen into the river and I thought that it could make for a cool picture. I think this one came out pretty cool. It's much more minimalist than my other pictures, and I actually really love that. You know, it's much more clear. You can see what the subject is. You can see the different tones and color of the river. So I really like this one a lot. As I was taking that picture, I noticed some ducks that were swimming across the river from the opposite side over to where I was. And so I just stayed exactly where I was and tried not to make any movement. You can see them getting closer here in the video. And you can also see me advancing the film because I had forgotten to do that again. But yeah, so I waited for them to get a little bit closer and I got this picture. Again, a little bit more clear than the ones I was taking from the trail. There's nothing obscuring my view. I was surprised they got so close to me and I wish they were a little bit less dark, But either way, I think it's kind of a nice one to get for sure. Then I noticed a person had come down and was about to start fishing, it looked like. So I figured, let me wait for them to get set up and I'll ask for a picture. And I was so nervous. I think you can tell in my voice.
Excuse me. Is it cool if I get a picture of you? Okay, thank you.
He was so nice and said, of course. So I got a little bit closer and waited for him to cast his line. And then I got this picture. And I really like this. I think this might be the picture of the day. I do wish the sky wasn't so overexposed. I think that's where most of the overcast skies were. And the sun was peeking over from the left side. So I do think, it's partly just a very cloudy section of the sky. But also I don't know if that's maybe something I could have fixed with my settings. Either way, I'm really happy with how this turned out because yeah, I was very nervous. I've never asked someone to take their picture like that. And yeah, I was wondering if I should crop in to get a more clear image of him, but I think I still prefer the original picture. I don't know what y'all think. This was just a few steps ahead of where I was at. There are these like wooden planks on the floor making this path. And I had seen people walking through them, but I didn't have a chance to take a picture. So I thought maybe I'll try and do a self-portrait. I've never tried to do that before with a film camera. I had tried to see if the mechanism itself worked. So before I even loaded the film, I did try out this camera has a 5-second timer and a 10-second timer. So I tried that and it did seem like the shutter went off around that time, but I hadn't actually tried to take any pictures with it before. So this is my first time. So I set up the camera, left my GoPro and started running. I think the picture came out pretty cool, actually. I do wish I'd maybe taken a second to compose the image a little bit differently. I was kind of worried that more people were coming up behind me on the trail, so I did rush a tiny bit. I think maybe I would have liked to have placed the camera a little bit lower, but all in all, I think for my first self-portrait with my film camera, I'm pretty happy with this for sure. At this point, it actually started to warm up a little bit, so I ended up taking my gloves off and I walked down to this sort of like creek, I guess. I don't know what you would call it. It's just branching off of the main river and there's a bunch of fallen trees. It looked just like a mess, but a cool mess, if that makes sense. And when I was listening back to the audio, I actually laughed out loud.
Kind of a clusterfuck.
And this is the picture that I got. As you can see, it does look a little insane. Definitely very busy, super crowded. I don't know if this is a good picture by any means, but I think there's something kind of cool about it. Something that's like really tripping me out though, it looks like there's a person, even though there is not. It's giving Blair Witch Project. I don't know. Definitely giving off a creepy vibe. This is the end of the trail, so it kind of culminates in this sort of like rocky hill. It looked so pretty with the light, and I decided to take a picture of it. This is, I think, my last picture of the day. I like the colors again. The water just looks so pristine, and then the sun casting a glow on that one rock at the very edge has a very peaceful and calm element to it, which is how I felt on this trail. So I had a great time. I hope that you all enjoyed the video. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you could drop a like or a comment. From my understanding, it helps the channel out. So yeah, that would be awesome. I'll see you again in the next video.